Wander Wealthy Podcast, episode 227. Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Wander Wealthy Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I have been hearing from many of you in the DMs over on Instagram. If you don't follow me, I'm at Tess_Wicks, and it's just so great to see real faces that tune into this show. So I just wanted to start this episode off with a big thank you. Thank you for coming over to Instagram, reaching out to me, letting me know that you tune in, letting me know what episodes really resonate with you. It truly means the world to me because podcasting is such a weird way to communicate in terms of, I'm sitting here in my living room chatting to, the world, so to speak, and there are real people on the other side listening, and that is what makes this special because I really feel that it honestly feels like when you do reach out to me and let me know that you're listening, that I'm just sitting here chatting with friends and informing you about some things that might be helpful for you in your business and in your life. So if you're tuning in and if you haven't reached out, totally do it. Like, I'm a real human being. I'm just looking for some validation, but also looking to connect. And if there are specific topics you want to discuss or you want to hear more about on this show, then totally come over to Instagram and send me a DM. Again, I'm at Tess_Wicks. And I love to hear from you guys. Seriously, it is so special to put faces and names to listenership. So I see the numbers, I just don't always know who the faces are, and I love to see that. Anyway, for those of you who are just tuning in, this might be your first time, then just so you know, we're friendly around here. I'd love for you to reach out and let me know as well. But my name is Tess Wicks, if you've gotten this far without knowing that. And I am the founder of Wander Wealthy, the host of this show here that we have, and business coach who was once a financial coach, and at one point before that an aspiring coach. And I kind of went through the trials and errors, the ups and downs of the roller coaster, and now I am on the other side, having had built my own full-time financial coaching business. I want to teach you how to do the same. So if that is what you want to do, then you are in the right place. I support money coaches, financial coaches, wealth coaches, whatever you want to call yourself. And even if you don't call yourself that quite yet, if that's a dream, if that's an aspiration, then this is the place for you. So this week we have a kind of off the cuff episode. I wanted to share with you all something that I shared in the opening ceremony of this current round of the Wealthy Coach Blueprint. And it's on the topic of failure. And I think this is really important because honestly, a huge reason why most of us don't even try in the first place is because of our fear of failure. So I wanted to help maybe reframe failure for you so that you can give things a shot, so that you can actually make your dreams a reality by first just trying to make them a reality. Because so many of us have these goals, we have these wishes, we have these hopes, but we don't always take the idea and put it into practice. We don't take action on it. We don't, try even though we don't know if it's going to work out because of that fear that we don't know if it's going to work out, because of that fear that it might not work out, because of that fear that we might fail. So I wanted to help reframe that in a couple of ways so that you can see that failure for you, especially building an online coaching business, can quite literally not exist. So if that doesn't get you hooked to keep tuning in, I don't know what will. But before we dive into that, I do have to introduce you to the sponsor of this week's episode, which is what I just kind of spoke about, the Wealthy Coach Blueprint. So that is my signature 12-week coaching program where I work intimately with aspiring, new, or even seasoned but frustrated money coaches who are really looking to build a strong coaching business, a full-time booked out coaching business, or even part-time, but still be making money from it and really feel that they are confident in what they're selling. They know that there are people out there that want to buy from them and want their services, want their help in working through their financial trials and tribulations. And if that's something that you want to do, then the Wealthy Coach Blueprint is the only step-by-step program that will get you and help you build a booked out coaching business, whatever booked out means for you, on the market. It's the only program out there that helps you really learn the ins and outs of doing business. There's a lot of certification and training programs around coaching and how to coach, but if you don't know how to sell, if you don't know how to market yourself, it's going to be really hard to actually be able to coach because you may not have any clients. And even if you do have some clients, but they're not paying you, we need to know how to turn this from, just doing this for fun or doing it to see if I can do it to actually doing it as a business, to be able to make money, to be able to pay the bills of the very low expenses that come up when you run an online coaching business, but there are some, to be able to cover those, to be able to, pay your taxes, and also whatever you're building this business for, whether it is a full-time income or it's just some extra income on the side, to be able to actually make that money and do what you want with it. So the Wealthy Coach Blueprint is going to teach you that, and it's going to walk you through that. And the best part is it's a coaching program in and of itself. It's not just a course. It's not just information. We hold you accountable to make sure that you're taking action and you're doing the things that maybe you feel a little bit uncomfortable or maybe you're a little bit afraid of. You do it anyway to see that when you push through that fear, you will get results. So this is something that, it's almost entirely impossible for people to fail moving through the blueprint, especially if they have the will and they're ready to just do what it's going to take to get results. Now, here's the deal. We have a wait list right now because, like I said, just a few weeks ago, we had the opening ceremony for the most recent round of the Wealthy Coach Blueprint. And the next round will be one-on-one coaching in the fall. I'll only have a few spots available for one-on-one coaching with me. And in order to snag yourself one of those precious spots, you must be on the wait list because I will be reaching out to you individually to invite you to book a strategy session with me to make sure that one-on-one coaching is the right next step for you and moving through the blueprint is the right next step for you. So in order to get on the wait list, head to wanderwealthy.com/apply. All you have to do is you can, of course, check out all the details of the blueprint, but scroll all the way to the bottom, click the button, enter your name and email address, and you're on there. Bada bing, bada boom. You can always follow up with me on Instagram. Again, I love to hear from you all, and I want to know if you have signed up for the wait list. It's also weird because some people have not their actual name on Instagram, and maybe their Instagram handle doesn't line up with the email address they use to sign up for the waitlist. So I don't always know who is who. So just clarify and let me know. And yeah, it makes it so much easier for me to put two and two together and know who I'm talking to at the end of the day. So the funny little nuances of running an online business is that sometimes you get on the phone and you don't realize that you've been DMing this person for weeks. And then all of a sudden you're talking to them and you're like, oh, that's your Instagram handle? Okay, this all makes more sense now. So got to clarify. Anyway, let's dive in to talking about how we can reframe failure so that it essentially doesn't exist. Okay. I know that that's a huge statement to make, but once you can see that failure doesn't have to exist for you, it almost takes the pressure off because so many of us were brought up in a society where failure is possible. And I kind of, blame our typical traditional school system, at least in the US, but I think, failure is possible across school systems around the world unless you have some sort of alternative schooling. And it's almost unfortunate because obviously, we do need to measure kids as they're growing to make sure that they're on pace and, being able to kind of get to certain levels and be able to measure understanding and whatnot. But that can really hinder us when the option of failure is there. That can really hinder us in so many other ways, especially when it comes to pursuing a dream and pursuing what we really want to do. Having that fear of failure be already a stumbling block, already a sticking point, keeps so many people from actually just trying and actually doing it anyway. Okay, so there are two things that I have kind of come up with, and I'll be honest, I've thought about this deeply, but I haven't thought about this, I haven't gone into a cave and thought about this for hours upon hours on end. So maybe this is not comprehensive. And I always say that in my podcast episodes, because I just want to get my ideas out there and share them with you so that you can potentially take a nugget of this and apply it to your own life. So I don't need to overwhelm you with a fully comprehensive, I've spent years of my life thinking about this. Okay. But there's two things that I've kind of come up with specifically for when you are operating and trying to build a business in the online space. Two things that will make failure real for you. Okay. So failure exists only if you choose comparison and or you choose to quit. Okay. So bear with me here. Let's start with comparison, because there's a lot of kind of subtext to the idea that we can choose to believe in failure when we compare ourselves. And there's a lot of different things that we compare ourselves to measure ourselves up to determine whether we have succeeded or failed. Okay, so most of us will compare ourselves to others. So if you are trying to build your money coaching business and you're looking on Instagram, which is a horrible sign of success or failure, because we all know that there's Instagram and then there's reality, and most people only put their highlight reels up there. So truthfully, even some of the people who you think are the most successful oftentimes aren't. Or they might actually be, financially successful. They might actually be making money from their business, but maybe content or even just emotionally successful, they might still feel like they aren't. So what's interesting is we can compare to so many different things, and we can compare to people, but then beyond that, we can try to compare to other people's happiness, other people's money, other people's appearance, and all of that. It's so nuanced, but all of that creates this idea of what success is and what failure is. And it truly messes with our mind. But let's just kind of, back it out a little bit and just say, okay, you're comparing yourself to other money coaches online. And maybe you start at the same time. Maybe you started your business before them. And so from an expectational point of view, you're thinking, I should be better off. I should be further along. And because I'm looking at this other person's business, I don't feel that I am as far as I should be. And therefore, I am failing and they are succeeding. Okay. Another thing that we can compare ourselves to that then creates this illusion of failure. And that's what it is. It's an illusion of failure because, we'll get to that, but just remember that failure is an illusion. It's not an actual thing. So the other thing that creates this illusion of failure is comparing our timeline. So this comes up a lot with those who go through the Wealthy Coach Blueprint, which is why I wanted to bring it up in our opening ceremony, because the Wealthy Coach Blueprint is a time-bound program, right? We have 12 weeks where we work through things. And whether I'm working with a group or someone one-on-one, time and time again, I start to see individuals start to compare themselves to the timeline. What should I be accomplishing by this point compared to your average client? Or, if we're in a group, then they're just comparing to each other. And it's not necessarily they are comparing to other money coaches, but even more so, like, I should be further along in my process than this, not then this person is, but because this person is further along and we're both going through the same 12-week program. But again, that just creates this illusion that you are either succeeding or you're failing. So if you're on par with the timeline that maybe you set this expectation for yourself with, or maybe even you ask me as the coach and I kind of let you know, well, typically after the first 4 weeks, you could get your first client, or you should be at this stepping stone, then I'm setting this illusion of failure in place for you to think through, because you're thinking, if I'm not there, then I'm failing. And if I'm beyond that, then I'm succeeding. So if this doesn't connect, success is also an illusion, which is an interesting thing, but I feel like a whole nother thing to dive into another day. But anyway, back to the illusion of failure. So when we compare ourselves to other people, that creates the illusion of failure. When we compare ourselves to timelines, that creates the illusion of failure. And then I think the last thing from comparison perspective is really just, I think it's timeline, I think it's people, but it's kind of like the culmination of it all is our expectations, right? You probably got into this business thinking like, oh yeah, a couple months and I'll be, making passive income. Couple months and I'll have a fully booked out roster of clients. Couple months and I'll be able to leave my 9-to-5 job. And then you're a couple months in and none of that stuff has happened. So we've set expectations, and if we have fallen short of those expectations, then again, we've created this illusion of failure where, because we're not there yet, we've failed, or, if we've blown past it, then we've succeeded. And even sometimes, this is why success is an illusion, because even if you've met every expectation, there are still many, many individuals, and I would say a majority of people, who would still consider themselves failures because the bar is constantly moving. So success is so much an illusion as failure is. But again, we're focused on failure. So this all kind of is summarized by the idea of comparison. If we choose to compare ourselves to others, if we choose to compare, where we're at compared to the average or the expectation of a timeline, or if we compare ourselves to the expectations maybe we originally set at the very beginning, or maybe expectations others are setting for you, then of course failure is going to exist. But here's the truth about building a business. The coolest thing is that you get to do it in your own time. And whether it takes you 3 years to get to the point where you've built this booked out coaching business, or it takes you 3 months, by the time you're at that booked out spot, you have a business. And that's awesome. And you've succeeded. The problem is that the person who takes 3 years might start to compare themselves, obviously, to the person who takes 3 months, and then start to feel bad, and then start to feel less than, and then start to feel like, they aren't meant to do this. They're not cut out to do this, especially if they're not at that 3-year point where they have a booked out coaching business. So they can't see that that's possible for them yet, even though I, as the mentor, I know it's possible, as long as they keep going, as long as they keep pushing and building in their own time in a way that makes sense for them. But so many people start to take on and grasp and embody this illusion of failure because of comparison, because they look at where other people are at, and if they're not as far along, they feel like, okay, it's not going to work for me, or because of the false, or just poorly set expectations from the beginning, or because they thought it needs to be on some certain timeline and that didn't work out for them, so therefore it's not in the cards. So failure truly doesn't exist if we can drop the comparison. If we can drop comparing ourselves to others, to a timeline, or to the expectation we probably originally had that, we were probably way in over our head when we first decided this is something I'm going to do. It doesn't have to exist if we choose not to compare. Now, easier said than done. I'm fully aware of that. But I'm very passionate about this idea because I could have succumbed to that type of failure. It took me years, like 3 to 4 years to get to the point of having a booked out coaching business and finally feeling like, oh my gosh, I figured this out. Like, business doesn't have to be so hard and I can truly do this, to finally feel that confidence and feel, just feel like I was actually a coach and a business owner and an entrepreneur. It took me years, and I latched on to the illusion of failure many times. It really pulled me down. That's probably one of the reasons it took me so long. But for whatever reason, I kept going. And so I think that the comparison, had it been strong enough, or had I, and there were many times where I considered just going and getting a full-time job, because my story is that I left my full-time job and then I built my business. And I was very fortunate to have some other ways to kind of keep myself afloat on the side while building my business. But my focus was always that this is going to be a full-time business, building this financial literacy education. I didn't even know really if coaching was in the cards for me, but like building this, whatever it is, it's going to work out and this is going to be my thing. And meanwhile, I, kind of took on some side gigs and rented out my apartment on Airbnb and all of that to like keep me afloat financially. But like, I was still so focused on the business. So the comparison definitely came in, and it took me way longer than I expected. I had way false expectations when I went into it, and I definitely didn't meet those. And of course, there were people who I looked, to the side and in my own space, my peers who I compared myself to. But for whatever reason, I did not latch on to those to allow me to decide, you know what, I'm failing at this and no longer am I cut out to do this. Even though those thoughts crossed my mind, I just, for whatever reason, I kept going, which gets me to the second, and I think the biggest thing that indicates that failure exists, but it doesn't have to, right? And that is quitting. Now, quitting is an interesting thing because I think a lot of people perceive quitting as a bad thing. And I don't think it has to be a bad thing. I think if you quit something, that takes courage. I think quitting something is actually like a strength that a lot of people don't have. And so then they just like drive themselves into the ground. But in terms of failure, quitting is, the ultimate that allows you to see that failure is real. But you can also choose that, it doesn't have to, right? It doesn't have to exist. It doesn't have to be real. And it's really those who determine that quitting is not an option. And I don't want this to sound like quitting isn't an option, so pull yourself up by the bootstraps and just make it happen, because I do think that there are truly serious hurdles that some people have to overcome in order to continue moving on and continue moving forward. And in that case, I think that quitting can be a great option. And in the same kind of line of thinking, I do believe that building an online coaching business doesn't have to require so much of you, and more specifically, so much of your resources that you could potentially run out so that you have to quit. Like, building an online coaching business is so low cost in terms of what you need to invest. Of course, if you want to hire a coach, if you want to invest in mentorship, I think that's one of the best things you can do. because I truly think it can help you collapse time and what is your time worth. But in terms of investing in things that you have to, continuously be paying for, and if you're continuously paying for it, that could potentially mean that you do run out of resources such as money, or potentially running out of resources such as time, depending on who you might listen to and believe what you have to do to build your business. But, just so everyone's clear, here at Wonder Wealthy, and especially in the Wealthy Coach Blueprint, I show you how you can build a very lean money coaching business on very little time, like working, 10 hours a week, if that's what you want to do. And I think most of us have 10 hours a week to spare. Especially if this is going to help bring in money financially, then hopefully there's a way that you can use that and then be able to let go of maybe other lower paying things that are costing you your time. So with that knowledge that building an online business is very possible to do it super, super lean, knowing that you don't have to pour all of your resources into it, then quitting really doesn't have to be something that you consider. And you don't even have to have this mental attitude, which there are plenty of people who come into the blueprint and who I speak with where they're just like, quitting is not an option. I absolutely cannot. Nope, that's not something that I'm even considering. And that's cool. And I think that there are people that are just very mentally strong and tough and have that kind of competitive edge and mentality. And I love that. I think that's awesome. I'll be honest, that's not me. I'm pretty lazy in building my business and in working. And so if you have that edge, that's great. That's going to get you really far. But if you don't have that edge, I also think that you can still make quitting not an option just by knowing that you don't need many resources in terms of money or time to build your coaching business. So with that in mind, we can also choose that quitting does not equal failure. If you quit by choice, if you say, this is, I'm capped, I'm burnt out, this is actually not the path I want to go down anymore, I respect that. I think that takes courage. And I would not call that a failure. I would call that a success. On the other hand, you can choose that if this is the path you want to take, this is something that where quitting isn't an option, right? Then you also, as long as you don't quit, you don't fail. As long as you don't let comparison of comparing yourself to others, comparing yourself to a timeline, comparing yourself to your own kind of I don't want to say ignorant, but naive expectations that maybe you set for yourself when you first started, if you don't let that lead to quitting, then failure doesn't have to exist. I think that's the coolest thing, is that especially the bar is low, not in the bar is so low in building your business, in a disrespectful way, but in terms of what you really need to build a business and build a coaching business. In terms of resources, the bar is pretty low, which is awesome, right? That shouldn't be a huge hurdle. And that means that you can keep going. You can keep trying. You can keep, figuring out what's going to work, what doesn't. And you can do all of that without investing a ton of resources. I think that's cool. And I think that's cool that we can decide that failure, doesn't have to be an inevitable. It doesn't even have to exist. And imagine, what would you do in your life if you couldn't fail? Because that's the truth. You can't fail. Past school, past the years where you have to get an A or you get, a D and then you have to take it again, or you get an F and then you don't advance, right? After all of that BS, we've all run through that. We're done and we're good. After that, you can't fail. You just do. And you try again. And even the setbacks don't have to be failure. They can just be feedback. They can just be feedback to let us know if we're on the right track or if we need to pivot. And I think that that is the coolest part about being an adult and also building a business. This is a game that we're playing, this life. It's this game that we're all trying to figure out what success means for us, right? This illusion of success. You can choose what that looks like, and you can also choose that failure does not exist. So I know that was pretty up there in terms of bending your mind and asking you to just like bear with me, but I know that this is something that's tripping so many of you up. And I want you to know that this is a place, at least here at Wander Wealthy, it's a place for you to take messy action, for you to try, for you to decide that failure is no longer even, it doesn't exist. Not that it's not an option. It doesn't exist. I don't know how else to say that. And it's a place for you to show up imperfectly and just do it anyway. We got to stop and drop the perfection and the need to know it's going to work out before we even try. Because that's what's keeping us from taking any risks and chasing and following our dreams. So the choice is yours. And with that, if you're looking for mentorship, if you're looking to make an investment in your business, and I truly believe that the Wealthy Coach Blueprint can be the one investment that you make in your business to collapse time and take it to the level that you want it to be at, and then know that like from there, there's nothing else you have to make in your business in terms of investments. Of course, if you want to, and when you're making money, maybe you will be like, yeah, bring it on. Show me more things to invest my money into. But like beyond the Wealthy Coach Blueprint, you can run your full business and know that you're doing it in a way that is lucrative and that is sustainable and that is scalable. And if you want the mentorship and the support and the accountability, then that's the way to go. So to get on the wait list for the fall round, go to wanderwealthy.com/apply, put your name and email address in there, and don't forget, reach out to me if you're tuning in. Let me know what you thought about this week's episode. And until next week, I hope you wander wealthy.